everybody, welcome back to the Dice Tower. My name is Zee Garcia, and today I'm taking a look at 7th Sea, City of the Five Sails. This is an expandable card game based on a trading card game from yesteryear, just called 7th Sea, which is an RPG setting, basically. And they've made a card game that inspired this one. It's really not the same thing, though they do share quite a bit of DNA. This one is not something you'll buy in random boosters. In fact, this is the only product that exists for this game right now, and the idea is it will be supported with further releases in the future. But again, not a traditional collectible card game. The game is all about trying to take control of Five Sails, this city, with your faction, your characters moving in on different locations, hiring new muscle, acquiring new items, and ultimately pressuring the city to bend to your will. Let's go ahead and take a look at an overview. The game is quite complex, so I'll try to do as good a job as I can of explaining what's going on, and we'll come on back after that so I can give you some final thoughts. Here we're going to be sticking with a two-player setup, so let me explain how this works. I'll try to be as brief as possible. In this game, you're trying to control the City of Five Sails, represented here with these three locations. And you're going to do that in one of three different ways, which is how you win. First way, eliminate your opponent's leader. You do that, you win. Second way is having 7 renown, which are these tokens over here. And then third and final way is simply controlling all three of these locations with your tokens at the end of a round. Achieve any one of those three and you win the entire thing. If none of those three things are achieved by the end of the 5th day in the game, then the game will also end at that point. And what is a day? Well, a day is broken down into phases, and each player, by the way, is going to have 2 player aids, both double-sided with quite a bit of information. Right now I am referencing this one, which has the phases of the day. So I'll go through these fairly quickly. So the first one is the dawn phase, in which we are going to prepare the city for the next day. We simply do that by taking cards from this deck. This deck is always the same in every game. It represents the people, events, and items in the city itself. You are going to reveal one at each of these locations. And so this might be a person you could hire. It might be an event that takes place there. It could be any one of those things. So for example, here we've got an event that you could go there and trigger. It might instead be an attachment that you can go here and attach to one of your characters. Or it might even be a character that you can go here and hire. All right, so let's put those out there for variety's sake. So that is dawn. Next step is the planning phase. During the planning phase, the players are going to pick up this approach deck that you've pre-built before the game, and this approach deck has 5 scheme cards and 5 character cards. You are going to pick one of each, and then the 2 players will simultaneously reveal these. A few things happen with these. You are going to muster that character, meaning play them into your home area and have another character you can play with. And then this scheme card is going to change when the player basically wakes up in the morning. This is going to be your initiative. Whoever has the highest initiative, I have a 63 here. Let's say my opponent has an 82. They will be the start player and they get this. And then abilities. So in this case, mine says add a renown to the docks and to the forum. So we would go over here and I would put 1 renown in the docks, 1 renown in the forums. There's also an ability I can use during this day. So I want to leave this face up somewhere so I can use those abilities and set the rest of my approach deck there aside. Once both players have done this, bring out a character, pick a scheme and deal with it. We are also going to draw our opening hand, which has to do with a symbol on your leader. This is called your panache. This card might influence that, and you are going to draw that many. In this case, I'm going to draw 7 cards from here. So having done that, these cards are going to give me, for the day, various things I can do. These are going to be either attachments or risks, which are actions I can play to do all sorts of abilities. So that is the end of the planning phase, and we get to step 3 of the day, high drama, where basically most of the action is going to happen. During this phase, the players are going to take actions back and forth until they pass in succession. You can pass, have your opponent take an action, and then jump back in. But if we both pass in a row, then we are done, and we move on to the next phase, which is the Plunder Phase. During the Plunder Phase, we are going to check if anyone controls these locations. If they do, first of all, we check if anybody controls all three. If so, they win. But if they do not, then we are going to collect any of this renown that's in the city with us. So I would take this renown, my opponent would take this one, and so on. There's none here, so I wouldn't collect any. And then we are going to see if anybody has 7 renown. If anybody does, they win. Once that's all done, we are going to go to the final phase of the day, that is dusk, in which we will bring all of these characters back home. They would be at these locations. They come back home. We are going to ready these cards. We are going to let every location become uncontrolled once again, and we simply get ready for the next day. So like I said, the main action is during high drama. I'll talk about the different things you can do in there. Let's start with using an action. You can use anything in action on any card you have in your hand that says action something something on your scheme over here, or on any card in play that says action. You can do that each action once per day. Secondly, you can move something. If you are going to move, you can move any character from home to one of these 3 locations, which are all adjacent to your home area, or you can move them from one of these areas to another adjacent area. They can move from the Grand Bazaar to the Forums, for example. Now, coming from home, they are going to stay ready, but if you move them from any one of these to an adjacent, and these 2, by the way, are not adjacent, they do not wrap around, then you are going to have to engage your character. The characters exist in 2 forms. This is on guard. They are ready to activate, and this is engaged. So if they move from here to the Forums, they will stay on guard. If they move from here to the docks, you have to engage them to do that, and it limits them doing many other things. That is moving. Equipping. You can equip a card that is an attachment to a character. You can do that either from your hand if you have an attachment in your hand, such as this attachment here, or you could do it at a location with an attachment. Now, many cards you'll see will have a cost up here at the top. To pay any costs like that, you need to discard cards from your hand equal to the number that you are paying. What's on the card itself does not matter. It is simply 1 card or 2 or 3 that you need to pay for whatever it is you're paying. If this character is here and I want to attach this burnished cuirass to them, I can do that by paying 1 from my hand, discarding that to my discard pile, and they now have this attachment. Next up, I could recruit. That is how you're going to get these characters to come work for you. Again, these are folks, usually scoundrels or mercenaries that are part of the city, and you can hire them to come work for you. Let's need to have someone there, and I can pay for this person to come work for me. In this case, 5 cards. However, many of these characters can be parlayed with, and that means I can engage one of my characters and reduce the cost by this character's influence, this crown right here. If I want to do this, I want to hire this character, I could parlay first, reduce the cost by 3, and then I only need to pay 2 cards, and this character comes off of that location, is there still, and they are on guard, but they work for me now. Next up, you could claim a location. To claim a location, you need to engage someone. Then you're going to check your influence in that area, and if you have more influence there than your opponent, you can claim that location. Your opponent could then do this back, and if they have more, they will then claim it for themselves. And this is what you're trying to do to both gain renown, these, and maybe try to control all 3 in the same round and win the game that way. The final action is challenging, which is the most complex of all the actions, and this involves players fighting back and forth. But basically, let's go ahead and have this character here and this character here challenge. So I'm going to start here. I am going to challenge my opponent. I will exert my character, and I am going to challenge this opponent over here. So the way this works is we are creating basically the possibility of attacks on the other player. My strength here is 1, so I am going to put 1 potential hit in front of that player. We each have our hand of cards here, and you'll notice every card besides whatever it does and whatever it does in the text box also has these 3 spaces down here, which have to do with these combats, these duels. My opponent will have, of course, their hand of cards, and they are now going to, if they want to, once I've created that first initial volley, so to speak, they are going to either take this as damage or they can play a card from their hand and answer the fight. So here, I'll show you how this all works, okay? Let's say they play this card here, and we're going to ignore everything except for these 3 boxes. I'll do it right side up to us. The top one here is riposte. That means how many of these possible hits they are going to return to me. In this case, 2, but there's at most 1, so it'll be 1. The second number, if any, that's how many they are parrying. That's how many they are canceling. It has a line through it, so none whatsoever. And then thrust down here is how many new hits they are creating on me. And so they are creating 1 new hit. This card is going to stay out somewhere just to track the fight, but I'll discard it for now. And then it's my turn to answer them. So I'll have, again, my own hand of cards here. And perhaps what I'll do is play this one here. I'm going to play that, and it has a parry of 2. I'm sorry, a riposte of 2, parry of none, a thrust of 1. I am going to throw that back at them. And this is going to continue with players passing it back and forth. If there's any at the end of one of my plays that I did not get rid of or pass over, let's say I had 1 more here, then I take that one as damage. And now it's my opponent, and so on until it's all gone from in front of both players. At that point, the duel is over, and perhaps one of these 2 characters has been slain by taking enough damage equal to this number right here. And in that case, they are eliminated and sent to the locker, as in Davy Jones's locker. So there we go. That is what's happening. There's a lot more complexity to that. Various things and keywords and sort of maneuvers you can apply, various tactics you can employ. But generally speaking, that is the core of this dueling mechanism. So there you go. You are going through each of those phases of the day. Once we would both be done, again, everything sort of comes back home. And they are on guard again, assuming they all survive. My opponent would do the same thing. Let's say they, walked away with a couple of hits there, and we get ready for the next day. We discard this. If it's still there, we put out 3 new ones over here, and we do it once more until one of the 2 players wins or the 5 days are up, and then we go to some tiebreakers at that point. So there you go. A very, a wide overview of how the game works. Let's go ahead and go back up top, and I'll give you some more thoughts. I tend to be a fan of trading card game style games, okay? I've played quite a few of them in my time. Never got into any of them competitively. Like, that wasn't really my scene. I wasn't into building an incredibly potent deck, taking it to a local game store, playing, moving up in rankings, that sort of thing. It was always more like, playing casually at home. But I enjoy the idea behind these games quite a bit. The idea of being able to modify a deck of cards to suit me, to be my faction, my weaponry, my tactics and strategy, what have you. And this one is going to very much allow you to do that. Now, this one, there's sort of 2 things here which I have to discuss. Okay, the main one is not really a positive, but I suppose if you dedicate the time, it could become one. And that is that this one is an incredibly complex game. It is heady, it is thinky, it is deep, and you will not be playing this game casually. So right there, I think a lot of you are going to go, okay, I'm out. That's not for me. And that's a valid response to that, because it is not really casual. There's nothing casual about this game. Everything is involved. Everything requires, I won't go as far as to say study, but certainly dedication, okay? And you could see that as a negative. I think that that's interesting and could turn into something particularly rewarding But even just scratching the surface, I find to be very captivating, okay? The other thing is, I love how this game now, in this iteration, is really pretty much almost nothing like Magic the Gathering. It's the sort of quintessential trading card game, okay? I think that's fascinating. So many of these kinds of games are imitations to varying degrees, basically, but imitations of Magic the Gathering. They have the similar turn structure. They have the similar idea of putting out creatures or monsters or people, having them fight another character, having them attack your opponent or collect something or what have you. Those beats within a turn are very similar. This game, the only thing that is immediately imminent, that is obviously the same between the two, and it's sort of a meaningless thing, is you turn cards sideways to denote that they have been used, okay? Because it's an easy way to denote that a card has been used, instead of putting a token on it. Other than that, this really feels entirely different. There's area control in this game. There is this movement between locations. Your deck of cards is not even composed of the new characters you're bringing in. That you get from this approach deck and the city itself. You can hire these people at the city to come work for you. So it's a very different kind of game. The back and forth of taking one action until we both pass, or something very board game-esque about that quality, okay? And even when you do get down to fighting, the dueling in this game is entirely its own thing. And it's very clever, it's very engaging, and very involved. I like it quite a bit. I think the combat here is tremendous. But it's the kind of thing you might not want to get involved in. Maybe you build a deck for yourself that's all about putting out a lot of the coins, a lot of the influence, right? And then collecting those, and that's maybe what your deck is going to excel at. So you're avoiding combat. Maybe you are trying to control the different locations, and that's what you'll attempt to do. Worry about your influence in the city and control the locations. Maybe you are the person who goes for the throat, and you build a deck very much designed to eliminate your opponent's characters. So I like that that's very different, again, in feel and in vibe from other games of this ilk. I like also that I've played some 7th Sea long time ago. I like that I can see, again, a bit of the DNA in here, but there's a lot of modern concepts and ideas in this game. 3 locations, the control of those locations, paying for cards you're deploying with other cards from your hand. I think that's interesting. A lot of what's going on here feels a lot more modern than many of these games manage to be in this day and age. So I like it. Again, not one I'm pulling off the shelf all the time, right? It takes too much dedication. It's going to be a hard one you either keep it in rotation or it just collects dust on the shelf, unfortunately. But I think I could see there being, months of reinvigorated interest in this game for me as a casual player. Now, if you're someone looking for your next cardboard obsession, I could see this being a fantastic choice. There's enough here to keep you interested. And again, this is just round 1 of what I'm hoping will be a lot of various releases. The world, the setting, the theme, the artwork is pretty decent. Not the most consistent, but it's pretty good. There's some artwork here that definitely harkens back to the 90s era of CCGs. But overall, gameplay here is something to write home about, and I very much enjoyed it. So there you go. That is 7th Sea, City of the 5 Sails. I'm going to come down at an 8 out of 10 on this one, folks. That's going to be a seal of approval. And I certainly recommend it, again, if you are someone who loves this kind of game, or you're looking for a new one to invest a solid amount of time into that will reward you with that investment, all right? So there you go. That's it for me. My name is Zee Garcia. I'll see you at the next one.